Okay, here's the countdown.
I always get so excited.
I know. Hello, we just get so excited about going live.
We're live right now on my screen.
Perfect. We are in it to win it with Geoff Hughes, everyone. Hello, hello, Ambition Babes. We are so excited for you guys to be here and to hear from an amazing guy that has had such an impact in the lives of so many, and especially for Ali and I. And Ambition Babes probably wouldn't be here at this time. It'd probably be 3 years down the road if it wasn't from the mindset shifts that we had working with Geoff and his mentorship program. So we're so grateful and really excited to have you on today and to have you as one of our special speakers at our Ignite event.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me on here. And I learned from you guys just as much as you guys learned from me. You guys were just really good students.
Well, thank you.
Oh, really? We're the best. Love it. We actually, just to give everyone here a little bit of backstory on our connection to Geoff, we all met last year at an event. We love events. This is the best part about going to events is networking. Because again, it's one thing to form a connection from an online perspective. It's a whole nother thing to form a connection from an offline perspective when you're in person, you can chat, connect, get to know one another. And after Carly and I met Geoff and really felt his presence, his vibe, his knowledge, his wisdom, we're like, and saw the level of his success. He's been working in the online space for quite a number of years. He's done extremely well for himself. We're like, okay, this is someone that I want to take notes from. This is someone that I want to learn from. This is someone who is like up leveled in their life in so many ways. Like we could grow from this. And Carly and I were kind of feeling at a plateau for ourselves in our business. You know, we'd achieved really great results, but we weren't really necessarily feeling like we were really propelling forward. We were just sort of doing the motions. And that was, you know, a humble recognition that even from other people's perspectives of us, we're probably like, oh, they're doing so great. And for us, we're like, man, like I feel like I need more. I feel like I'm not growing enough, or where are things lacking? And we reached out to Geoff and we wanted some mentorship and some guidance. And Geoff actually established an 8-week mentorship program for us. And that was like the game changer for both Carly and myself in our personal businesses, in developing Ambition Babes, in developing ourselves, our habits, our commitments, our integrity with our word, fitness. Like everything changed from that moment of saying we needed help. We needed something bigger than ourselves, and swallowing that humility to say, like, I'm not good enough right now, but I know
Order pizza.
Yeah, ordering pizza. Enough of that. And I think that's such a good perspective to get to that point where you can go like, I needed a little bit more. And Geoff was there for us and developed a program, and it was incredible. And what that did in terms of a domino effect in connections that we made through Geoff, in getting to meet Todd Campbell, who's also going to be speaking at our event, and forming that connection that was established through Geoff. And just all of these different things that have happened since saying like that first step forward with you, it's just incredible. So definitely sharing a little bit more about you, Geoff. I'm sure everyone wants to hear from you, so I'll stop babbling.
Yeah. So a little background on me. I've spent the last 8 years in internet marketing, lead generation, affiliate marketing, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've gotten some of those nasty spam emails from eHarmony or one of those companies out there. There's a chance that it was me. But yeah, like they said, the mindset stuff and the big shift. I really struggled myself actually with mindset stuff, and I read a lot of books. I went to a lot of conferences. I was around people, and everyone's like, you can achieve anything, you know, you got to put your mind to it. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was reading books and stuff like that. but I still didn't get it. I was crashing and burning. My moods were up and down. I didn't get what was going on, because all that stuff that we talk about, like, positive thinking and read the books and stuff like that. I mean, that's great, but it's like saying, hey, you need to get in a car and you need to go somewhere, but you don't know how it works. You don't know how to put the key in. You don't know anything. You have the content, but you have no context on how the vehicle works at all. None. So that's what I was consuming myself with, so much content, all these great ideas. I would go to events and I would get excited about it. I'd be around people. I'd have these mindset shifts in a moment, and then I would crash and burn, and I would just go back to that exact same life every single day. And coincidentally, I ended up crashing 2 times. One time, my third time, actually, I completely shut down all my businesses. I was stressed out to the nines, and I had to do a reset. And the reset for me was, why am I reading all these books? Why am I surrounding with these people? Why am I doing all this stuff and not getting what everyone else said? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, I'm not getting, like, sure, what people would consider to be successful financially. I had made my first $1 million. I had bought in the toys and stuff like that, but I wasn't happy. And everyone says, money doesn't make you happy. It definitely doesn't. I mean, I was striving to make as much money as possible. I grew up in a house that mom was on welfare. We were broke, didn't have anything. So I used everything I could to become successful financially. That's where my mind was, money. But it didn't solve anything. And through all these crashing and burning and personal development, I remember going to, my first one was Landmark Forums, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to change the world. And then a week later, I was like, well, that didn't work. What the hell? What's going on? Why didn't the world change? And reality is, the school and the education system don't teach people about emotional intelligence. They don't teach people about how your actual brain anatomically works, how to utilize and use things to actually get the best results. We don't know any of that stuff. And I didn't know any of that stuff. And all the personal development stuff that I could go in the world and all the people that I could surround with, it was literally like having a bunch of luxury cars around, but I didn't know how to drive them. I didn't know how they worked. I didn't know anything. So last time I was like, okay, all right, I'm tired of reading all the books. I'm tired of going to the events. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on everything. Now I need to figure out what is the missing key. And that's when I started going down the journey of learning how our brain actually operates and the functions of it. One of the books that I read was Psycho-Cybernetics, written back in the 60s. And to be perfectly honest, I would consider it pretty much the godfather book of personal development, because if you read about it, if anyone's ever watched Tony Robbins, how he always goes, I created this, mother, right? That's what it is. You create it. You create the life that you want. But between the ages of 1 and 7, you didn't create anything. You assumed a personality. You assumed an identity from the people, places, and the world around you that you didn't even know. It wasn't even yours. You just took it on, because when you come out, you're a blank slate, and you're required to have an identity to survive in the world. Like that, this is part of our reptilian part of the brain. And quite honestly, it still controls 90% of everyone out there is that prehistoric reptilian brain, which is based on fear and survival. And we have evolved so much further. We're so evolved so much further, but our brain hasn't gotten to that evolution period, right? We operate in this world of chaos, thinking that there's when you get stressed out, your body's acting as if a saber-toothed tiger is chasing you down, but it's not. So I started doing all the books, and I started doing all the reading, and I started to understand what was going on. I was like, okay, all right, I have a program. I'm programmed. I have an identity, but I have a program. And now that I have a program, now that I'm aware of it, now what does it take to actually change it? And through all my reading and putting it together, it came down to, and here's the thing, it's simple, but it's hard. And when I say it's simple, it's just like any, you know how they say practice makes perfect? It's the same thing with us. It's repetition. So there's usually only about 3 ways to really change your identity. One, is a peak emotional experience, near-death experience, something so catastrophic that's changed you in an instant moment that it shattered your beliefs, that you've completely changed yourself. The other one is hypnosis. Between the ages of 1 and 7, you're actually operating between delta and theta, which is the low vibrational level, which you're operating. That's why you see kids that'll be like, I'm making a mud pie, and they're flying stuff around because they're thinking of the creative side of the brain. They're in a very creative, they're very creative at that moment. And when you're in theta, you are in that creativity moment. So you're consuming information at such a rapid speed so that you can get an identity. So between 0 and 2, you are gaining like crazy amounts because you're at the lowest vibrational level, period, which is delta. By the time you're 4, 50% of actually all your beliefs are in place, and beliefs drive behaviors. So I was like, okay, so hypnosis, something crazy happened in my life. And what's the third one? Repetition. Practice makes perfect. Repetition, over and over and over again. And they don't teach this stuff, but so you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. Yes, we know that there is a conscious and a subconscious. We hear about this, and I knew that there was a subconscious mind, but your subconscious mind actually dictates 90% of everything that you do. It's in control of 90 to 95% of everything you do every single day. So I was like, okay, so if I do something repetitive, what is the function? So your conscious mind processes information at 40 bits per second. That means that the information that you're consuming in is at 40 bits per second. Your subconscious mind processes information at 40 million bits per second.
That's insane.
It's 1 million times more powerful. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense, because if you had to focus on walking consciously, you'd be dead. You wouldn't be able to drive. You'd be focusing on pressing the gas pedal, because here's the thing. People say that they can multitask. There's no such thing. You cannot consciously do 2 things at once. You can subconsciously do one thing and consciously do another, but you can't do 2 things consciously. Try and feed 2 people with a spoon at the same time. Focus on this. I actually had this argument with Kamei, and she's like, I can multitask, and she tried to do it, and Malia ended up with a spoonful of like gunk all over her face because she can't. It's impossible. Conscious mind. So the subconscious mind's job is to take stuff off your plate. It's so that when you're not consciously thinking about it, the subconscious level, it's going to start initiating and behaving that certain way, right? It also keeps us survival. Like, it keeps us, knowing instinctively what's going on. It allows us to see and hear at the same time. If you had to consciously do that, you literally would walk off a cliff. You'd be dead. Yeah. So it's very simple. Whatever the conscious mind thinks about all the time, repeatedly over and over and over again, the subconscious mind goes, all right, you consciously keep thinking about this all the time. I need to take that off your plate, so that when you're not consciously thinking about it, that we start behaving and acting and be that way. Mm-hmm. So it takes it off the plate. So it's no different than when we started driving a car. We were like, where's the key? We're driving, you're like paying attention. Now you have no problem. You can touch the brake, you can drive, you can talk on the phone at the same time, you can touch the stereo, you can see the road all at the same time. That's your subconscious mind intact. Mm-hmm. You want to know what's even more crazy about it? I'll give you a perfect example. How many times have you gone out, pulled out of your house, and you want to go to your friend's house, but you get on the phone at the exact same time that you're about to head to your friend's house, and you're talking away, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, goodbye, and then all of a sudden you look and you're driving to work. You're like, oh, I forgot the turn off. Because you were consciously thinking about the conversation. The subconscious, like, okay, well, you drive this way every single time. So now that you're not consciously thinking about it, we're going to take you to where you keep going every single day. Yeah. It's exactly what it does. So if you want to be a different person, no one wants to wait to be like a near-death experience. No. You don't want to wait for a near-death experience, right? And hypnosis, you aren't at theta and delta, and yes, there are ways that you can go through, and there are certain techniques that work out there that work for hypnosis. But let's be honest, how many sessions do you have to go to? What would it look like if you created habits every single day that took you outside of your comfort zone so that you could behave and be the person that you want to be? Because here's the craziest thing: 74% of NFL players and 60% of NBA players end up broke or bankrupt within 2 to 5 years of leaving the NBA or the NFL. Millions and millions of dollars. 70% of lottery winners end up broke or bankrupt within 5 years. They had all this money, they got it all. The key is they weren't the person that deserved to have those things. Most of the time, and this is just my thought on it, the NBA and the NFL players and stuff like that, based on their environment that they grew up with, right? They're looking at filling their void with things. And the problem is when the NFL career or the NBA careers ends, you're not making the money that you used to be, and you're still filling all the voids with things. And then eventually, guess what happens? You have no more money to supply those things, and you end up broke or bankrupt, right? Because they're looking at external things to validate their internal talk, right? So the only way to be okay with yourself is to change the conversation that you're having internally on a daily basis. Because whatever you believe to be true is actually how you're going to behave. Sure, there's people that you can talk about there. They're this certain way. Yes, go put them in a stressful situation, and you're going to see exactly who shows up. Because the subconscious, which is in control of all the emotions and the central nervous system, pops just like that. And emotions are the single hardest things to work through. Absolutely. So once you start on a journey of understanding, and yes, the power of reading books and understanding new way techniques, surrounding yourself with the proper people, because we have mirror neurons, right? So the people that we surround ourselves with, they actually have a lot to do with our behaviors as well. Because how many times you've been with a bunch of people and you're real positive, and all of a sudden you've got this person that's super negative, or you got a bunch of people and they're talking about it, and next thing you know, you're in on a conversation and you didn't even think about it. You just instinctively done it, right? That's that reptilian part of the brain going, oh, we need to connect with the human beings. We don't want to be singled out as the person going, I don't want to talk negative. We'll just go in and we'll be part of the crowd, right? These things are all important, but I didn't have the context of why all these things were. So when you start putting all that together, it makes it a lot, I feel like personally for myself and what I've seen from students, it gives you a reason why. Now you know, right? It's like, kind of like the stove, right? You know, mom, dad says it's hot, and you're like, oh, and you're like, oh, right? You know now not to touch the hot plate, even though mom and dad told you a million times. Now I know the way that my brain operates. I know that if I do this certain thing, this thing's going to happen. Not I'm going to read a book and I'm going to go to these events and I'm going to be around these people and I'm going to party, blah, right? So when you guys reached out to me, I was literally in my journey of like doing this work internally. And when you guys asked me like, hey, mentorship, I was like, you know what? I want to do, I'd love to share this. Yeah. So we came out and I know for me, a part of my journey that's really helped cascade is at physical exercise. Yeah. It really does create a massive momentum. I mean, I've seen both you two physically change, and with your mindset as well. It really helps out, because here's the thing: most people don't understand. Once you understand how the brain works, right? Every time you exercise, it releases dopamine. Dopamine makes us happy, right? And the one thing that humans are addicted to is dopamine. Why do you think we have a drug epidemic? Why do you think we have an alcohol epidemic? Why do you think we have a sugar epidemic? Sugar and cocaine actually stimulate the same part of the brain. We're dopamine junkies. Well, what would it look like if we could create a life for ourselves and do positive, really cool things and spike our dopamine and not have to worry about external things, not worry about drugs, not worrying about what's going on with other people, because we're fully in line with ourselves, right? That's a huge thing. And that was a big lesson. I mean, and they don't even teach this stuff in school. I mean, I didn't learn this till I was damn near 40 years old. And I already made all this money and all this stuff, just like all these other people that crashed and burned. None of it really makes you happy, because the only thing that's really going to make you happy is to be in line with yourself, be fulfilled with what it is that you're doing. And scientifically, they've been able to prove, and the number one thing that fulfills people is helping other people, because that's all it falls in line with the divinity of our legacy. And that's another thing about building your legacy. What's your legacy looks like, right? Because they've looked at human beings, and and I experienced this just recently with my mom, who passed away. What is the last thing when they're on their deathbed that they're looking to do? They're looking at all the regrets. They're looking at all the things that happened. They're looking to make an amends. They're looking to say sorry. They're doing all that stuff, right? Those are all things. What would it look like if you lived your legacy through your whole entire life, so that when you were there on your deathbed, all the people, because here's the thing, the thought of us unconsciously like just being gone, and once we're gone, we're forgotten. The thought of that actually is depressing. Think about it. You're just gone.
Yeah.
No, we want a memory left in all the people that we touched throughout the lives, to know that we made an impact on them, right? So what would it look like living your life like that? What would that look like giving yourself a purpose, right? What would it look like getting all the things that you wanted in your life simply by knowing how our brain operates, no matter what's happened in our lives, right? Because we are a product of our environment until we become metacognitive. Once you become metacognitive, that means that you are in charge, or you are aware of your program, because we're all programmed. We have a program, and it's not even your program. It's your mom, your dad, the church, whoever that you assume. Because here's the thing, between 0 and 7, you don't have kids do not have cognitive reasoning. None. They do not reason. Have you ever tried to reason with a 4-year-old? They freak the hell out. They want what they want right now, right? Because that part of the brain hasn't even formed. It's not even formed. By the time they're 8 years old, that's when it actually happens. So what do you think when you tell your kid, hey, quit being a little bleep, or hey, leave me alone right now? They take that as fact. Every single thing, and it computes, and it creates the program. My program was I wasn't good enough. As a lot of people have that exact same program, right? So becoming aware of it, no matter what our situation is, and here's the thing, we just have to own it all. You have to stop blaming everybody else. Because you think blaming everybody else for your problems, no matter how terrible your life, whatever events it gave to you at that point, right? Those events happened. Do you want to live the next 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years on those events that happened? It happened. And there's been terrible, atrocious things that have happened to people that they didn't get to choose. But what you do get to choose is the story over and over and over again every single day about how shitty your life is and about how this event happened. The event happened. But here's the thing. For every shitty event that's ever happened in your life, and mark my words, there's positive to it. 100%. There's a positive to each negative that happened in your life. So what would it look like if you seen that the event happened, but how you choose to perceive it and how it affected you was different? Game changer, like total game changer. No matter what happened to you in your life, there was a positive thing that happened, and you wouldn't be where you are today based on if those events didn't happen. Crazy. So throughout all that, I ended up building the program. It was sort of like a whip together and used my stuff in there, and we built it out and seen a massive change physically in both of them and mentally. And I remember, and and I'll be brutally honest, it was at the beginning, it was a struggle, because they're fighting with their identity and they're fighting with vulnerability. And what does a vision look like? Why don't we just wait till the end of the program to write our vision? Remember that?
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah, let's go on a road trip without the map or GPS. We're just going to go drive.
It sounds so stupid now, but at the time it was like, well, we don't quite get it right now, so can we just do it at the end when we're more pumped up?
Yeah.
It sounds so stupid now.
Well, there's nothing stupid about it. It's the same thing, because it made you feel uncomfortable getting outside of logic and reason. Logic and reason is what you know, because you're always constantly measuring about stuff that you know to make sure that you're safe and that you're okay and that nothing's frustrating you, right? So now you're going into the imagination, right? You talk to a kid and they'll be like, oh yeah, I can make mud pies, I can do this. And I'm asking an adult to go ahead and do that. And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you're looking at the past and you're like, well, none of this there. And how many of you guys have seen the Prince AE, the Prince E, It's Prince EA, I believe his name is, where he talks about how everyone dies at the age of, the first time people die usually is at age 25.
Yes.
Very powerful.
Oh my God. We watched that video at, during an event we went to at Awaken, and it was like,
But do you want to know why? And I can tell you why. I can tell you the scientific form and why they use it. Because, so if you ever notice kids, even teenagers, even young 20s, they're very mischievous. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to do stuff that they normally wouldn't do, right? They're willing to fail. You ever notice that? Like even teenagers, they have really risky behaviors. I remember I was way more risky.
Yeah.
It's because, and this is where it all comes from, is because your frontal lobe is not fully developed till you're age 25. And that's the insertion point where all your logic and everything else, right? So at that point, that's when all the dreams, all the things that you'd hope to be doing now have this overbearing circuit in place that's saying, no, we've done this, we've tried this, we've done all this stuff. No, you shouldn't do that. Let's keep it safe. But here's the thing. We all know that on the other side of safety is where all your dreams and goals and everything that you ever wanted in your life, right? So that's the reason that they say you die at 25, because that's when you fully developed your frontal lobe, and that's when all your logic and reasoning is in place. So needless to say, there's a learning curve in all of this, but it's a lot simpler than everyone thinks. It's a lot harder. And remember how I talked about emotions? Emotions are so powerful. That's where the hard part is, because emotions, and we have neural pathways that have been carved from the time we were a young kid. You can carve out new neural pathways in as short as 66 days and become permanent habits, right? Everything is habitual. I can guarantee that from the time last November till now that these two ladies have created crazy new habits that if they don't complete it, it's like they didn't brush their teeth in the morning anymore. And they're like, oh my God, and you know what I mean? And it just ticks at you to get it accomplished throughout the day, right? So that's part of the program. It's basically 8 weeks, just shy of 66 days to create new neural pathways and new positive fundamentals of the brain, getting books in there that allow you or give you an opportunity to understand how your brain operates, how your identity is what's actually operating you. And by all of that and creating your own legacy and creating a vision, like all the tools needed to build the life that you want that you never thought that you ever could. But here's the thing, your brain knows no difference between reality and imagination, and most people don't know that. And anybody who wants to argue, go put on some virtual reality goggles. You know consciously when you go to put those virtual reality goggles on, it ain't real. You tell your central nervous system in your eyes, if you're about to jump out of an airplane, you're freaking the hell out because it thinks it's reality. It sees it, right? So it's learning those little things, using visualization, creating it, because if you do it over and over and over again, they've been able to prove it that if you visualize shooting basketballs every single day for 20 days, you'll actually improve actual shooting that when you physically shoot it versus somebody who shot it every day. And in fact, they did one study and it was 1% difference between the people that actually practiced physically and the other people that actually visualized it for 20 minutes a day.
It's so amazing. Like, I think to my vivid vision, and it's evolved over time, obviously, since we first started in the fall, but I basically have like 5 things that felt so big, like, oh my gosh, if I could accomplish this, that'd be crazy. And I've already accomplished like 3 of those 5 things. And that was for a 3-year goal. And I've already done that in not even a year. So it's just crazy to see what your mind and what you can accomplish when you start mapping things out and really putting those intentions out there.
100%.
I think too, for me, like Geoff, when you touched on our programs, we are so programmed into the way we are. Lots of people just say, oh, that's just how I am. That's a program speaking. Or how some people come into a lot of situations with their ego versus their higher voice. What's driving that ship? And once you can recognize all those programs and you can start to realize where those patterns were developed, even the way that you're raised. I mean, for me, one of my biggest programs was I was a perpetual people pleaser. And I sacrificed my own happiness constantly to please others. I was this, and no problems, sunshine and rainbows in my life. And I would sweep things under the rug. I would put myself in situations that, if it made someone else happy, but it made me really unhappy, I'd still do it just because I didn't want to let someone down or I wanted to save face. And I constantly sacrificed myself until I felt like literally a shell of a person that on the outside looked really happy, and on the inside I was so incongruent. And it was these incongruencies that it was like, oh my God, like, is this my life? Because it doesn't feel good. This doesn't match anymore. And it was driving me crazy. But that program was taught to me by my parents. And it's crazy, even like when I'm with my mom, I love her dearly, but she's the same way. And that's that molding. And when you're in that environment of how you're raised and how your parents raise you and their programs, how my dad was raised by his family, that's the model of parenting that he got. Well, then that means that that's the model of parenting that he gave to us. Was it the best model? No. But then I get to learn from those programs. That doesn't define me for life. And now that you're able to understand our brain, like now I feel like my own little brain scientist now, because I can recognize in myself, oh, there's a program coming through. Oh, there's this happening. And now I can catch myself, and I've been able to learn how to evolve and to grow. And it is through repetition. It's changing those patterns into something, into a program that I actually wanted to step into who I was and the congruencies. And now I feel like I really like myself now. And I don't think I really liked myself before. And I don't have to fake it till I make it. This is who I am. I feel authentic and genuine and real. And that's such a beautiful way to live my life. And because I own who I am and put in that time and energy, it's amazing how much more than I was able to receive.
That's exactly the truth. And reality is it's 100% so much more fulfilling, because you're not sort of feeling like you're being an imposter, right? It's like,
yeah.
I'm this way over here, but internally in my room, I'm struggling because I don't feel like I'm being what I say I'm being, right? Because I have this program, or I'm being this certain way, right? And quite honestly, like most people consciously, they want it. They want the $1 million. They want this life. They want stronger relationships. They want all that stuff. But what's in control? The subconscious mind, which is 95% in control of everything that you do, because you can't consciously you couldn't operate if you were conscious at 40 bits per second. You need that 40 million. So when you really want all this stuff and your program's not matching it, what do you think ends up happening? You end up struggling, you end up feeling guilty, you end up feeling shame, you go into depression, anxiety, all this stuff, right? Because you're saying you want something. So then what we do is all together, we just never use our word. And then we start going, oh, maybe I'm going to try, I hope, all this stuff, right? Because you know that if you commit to some of this stuff, or what you thought committing to that stuff, that you're going to fall, right? You're not going to get it. Oh yeah, look at that guy. I bet it was from his mom or his dad. You have no idea. Oh, money is the problem. Oh, all these, you throw all these things in the world, that how all these external issues are the cause of all the problems, to make yourself feel good about being somebody who you actually don't like yourself. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Most people are not happy with themselves. They have a program that's repeating itself over and over and over and over and over again. And they want all these different things. That's why we you get people and they want to start new things. Oh, I'd love to make $1 million. Oh yeah, here's the Lambo. Here's the keys. It's wrapped around a pole. It's destroyed because they couldn't keep it. They couldn't keep the $1 million because they weren't the person that deserved to have $1 million. And what you understand is fundamentally that successful people have very similar type of habits and very similar types of ways of being. And you start seeing that, right? And you take somebody who's completely out of control, that all of a sudden got all this money. Well, they're not this person over here, and they end up crashing and burning, right? In order to have the things you want, you have to become the person and do the things to have, not have. And then, oh, one day when I get $1 million, that's when I'm going to change my life. No, you're going to be a millionaire with the exact same habits you have right now, and you're going to spiral out of control and then feel shitty that you just lost all your money.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
One thing, Geoff, I really love, like, just kind of touching on that, like the shiny ball syndrome. I feel like we're a society that suffers shiny ball syndrome because we have that lottery ticket mindset of we want instant gratification. A lot of people don't want to actually have to work hard on themselves and for something long term. If it doesn't happen quickly enough, then forget it, on to the next. And I see that often with even just in the online space is, the intention is, yeah, I really want to change. I want this. And then if it doesn't happen quickly enough or they don't see those results, it's like, then F it, like I'm going to do something else and I'll do something else. And they're in this perpetual cycle of nothing's working for me.
Yeah.
But it's not any of those things. It's that they haven't worked on them.
And to bring to what you're saying there, there's actually a part of the brain that triggers that. It's called the novel stimuli. And it gives you a little dump of dopamine every single time someone goes, oh yeah, I've got this really big business opportunity where you can make lots of money. You're like, ping, lots of money. You get a little dump of dopamine. You're like, oh, sweet, right?
Yeah.
And then I've seen this happen. How many times have you gone out there and you're like, oh, I really want this bad, and you go and you buy something and you buy it and you're all like happy, and then you get home and you're like, this isn't, no.
I've done that so many times.
Right? That's the novel stimuli. Novelty, which goes to shiny object syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is we get all these dopamine spikes, right? Because what are we as humans? We are all addicted to dopamine. So shiny object syndrome, what does it do? It gives us little dumps of dopamine every time we get excited about it, right? Consciously, we're like excited about it, but the program does not match, right? Read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Talks about how two families, kid that grew up very, very poor, kid that grew up with lots of money, their IQ, the one kid could be smart it could be like genius level up there. The other guy could be borderline, not even being able to function, but because he grew up in a family that focused on money and knew about money, subconsciously, he was able to create money out as no problem. This guy over here, money's a problem. Money's a problem. What is his program? Money's a problem. Money's a problem. He's going to make sure that he fulfills his legacy. He fulfills his identity of being somebody who has not money. So I'm going to be poor for the rest of my life, right? These are things that happen. So shiny object syndrome, they actually did. How many times have you gone into something or gone to a webinar or gone to some program and they get up on top and they're speaking about all this stuff? Like I've been to some real estate ones and they're like, oh yeah, and you can make all this money and do this. And you're like, oh wow, that's so awesome. And they're like, and the program's only $5,000. And you're like, oh yeah. And you go over and you get it. And then you get home and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you have to now embark on a whole different world, stuff that you're not used to, things that you've never done before, right? What are the failure rates when we get, what are the amount of times that we fail when we do something for the first time? So many times. Just because somebody gave you this course on real estate and how he made his millions doesn't mean that you understand it. You've never even been in that culture. You've never even been around it, right? So you're going to have lots of roadblocks. You're going to have things you're going to understand, right? What is going to happen to you? You're going to get frustrated. What is the brain's functions? Keep you alive and keep you safe. Safe also from emotional and physical harm. So emotion, anytime that frustration goes, the brain goes, oh, we don't like frustration. Stop doing it. That's why everybody in my program goes, what's your number one thing? Procrastination. Yes, that's your safety mechanism, your subconscious mind to keep you from doing things that you don't like to do, right? So we go in, we get all this stuff, we get the program, we get out there, and then all of a sudden we get frustrated and we're like, oh, okay, we don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And you stop it. You just spend $5,000. And I've done it. I've bought in programs, I've done things, and I found out it's not what I really want, right? Mm-hmm. That's why having a vision, knowing exactly what you want in life, exactly what's going to get you fulfilled, stops you from getting all these shiny objects and all these little things, because now you have something that you absolutely want and you're focused on it, right? They did a study. They took 22 rats and they had them in an environment for a long period of time, and then they gave them a new environment. It was this nice, beautiful environment. And how many times have you like heard somebody talk and then you're like super skeptical at first and you're like, I don't know about this. And then after a little while, they kind of connect with you and they say, oh, well, I'm this way and I'm that way. And all of a sudden you kind of like feel connected to them. Like, oh, they aren't like this crazy person that can never touch. And that's when your negative bias comes down. So they put all these rats in there and they gave them this new environment. And at first they're like, I don't know, I ain't going to go in there. This is actually a clinical study. And then all of a sudden they did. They decided, oh, okay, well, let me go over to the new environment. And they all went over there. So they all go over to the new environment. How quick do you think they went back to the old environment?
Pretty quick.
Instantly. It's because what they knew.
Mm-hmm.
We are habitual. Yes. We are programmed. It's like leaving our house. It's like leaving anything. Imagine if you're selling your house, you'd kind of feel a little bit like, I don't want to sell my own. And then when you leave and you're gone, and it kind of feels weird, right? This is human. This is our behavior. So it's being able to understand them and use them to your benefit.
It's true. It's kind of it's the having the idea that, okay, I want change, but then the action steps that actually transfer into change is the part that is the most challenging. It's like we've all been like shackled our whole lives. Like we're like a knight, like you have your armor on, and like this is who I am, so to speak. And then outside of that is beyond your comfort zone, beyond fear is freedom. What lies out here is so great. But to get out of all of that is challenging. And you're literally taking off pieces of yourself that you've held near and dear. The story of who I am, how I was raised, my parents, how I was treated, things that happened to me, events that happened to me. You have to literally one by one take off all of those things because they become a part of you. It feels good to sometimes feel sorry for yourself. People love being negative. People love having attention, and people love their victim story. And we all have it. I can be a victim day in and day out and tell people all about the things that have happened to me. Where does that get me in life? How does that progress me forward? It gets me nowhere. And recognizing that that's the part of your brain. Again, with failure, like how do we ever learn if we don't fail? Everyone is crippled by that fear that they'll fail at something. That's the best thing that could ever happen to somebody. You never look at a child that took a step and fell and was like, that's it. I'll be sitting for the rest of my days. You get on your first bike and you bail and you got a big raspberry on your knee. Who's not going to get back on that bike again? This happens all the time. Getting our driver's license. We suck at driving before we're ever good at something. We have to suck first before we're good at it. It sucked. The process that we went through to evolve into who we wanted to truly be was a process for a reason, because we were changing our patterns. We were taking off all of those old stories, healing old wounds to get to where we actually wanted to be and to have a vision. Geoff, I think for me, the biggest thing was it allowed me to become imaginative again, to become creative again, to dream about my life again. It was like seeing in color and not in this black and white world that it's like the doom and gloom and we have to be negative and hate our jobs and we just live in this perpetually negative cycle. And once it was like recognition of this isn't how I want to live, I'm done. And I was willing to do the work. So was Carly. It was great to be in that program together. But it was like, I'm done. I'm not growing. I feel like I'm digressing, to be honest. And I was sick of living incongruently. And I had to make that conscious decision to say, I am done and I'm going to show up. I'm going to have integrity to my word. I'm committed to this and I'm going to show up and make a difference, because now I feel like I really am living my life and tapped into something completely different. And I'm thankful that at least this happened to me when I was 33 and not when I was on my deathbed at 78 or 50 or hopefully 98 actually. But however long we have on this life, to not wait until the very end of your life to go, God, why didn't I show up? Why didn't I change? Why didn't I, do something, whatever it may be? But instead of waiting, you have all of these tools and resources and people to connect to. Like, I'm just so excited to have Geoff speak at our event, because this is the value that in just such a short amount of time, you can see what Geoff brings to the table. It's magnetic every time that we get him on a call or have him speaking, or I saw him live. We did a VIP event and I was like, oh, I just could listen to you forever. And then actually taking action steps of, okay, like Geoff said, it's great to like rah, 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 but then what happens on Monday? How do I take all of that information and turn it into actionable steps forward so then I can actually make a change? Because it's one thing to want it and it's a whole nother thing to implement and do it and show up for that change, because that's where the real magic happens, but that's also the biggest challenge.
100%. And they've actually taken, where you're talking about change, they took an electroencephalogram and they put it on someone's head and they measured what it was like for change. And the actual brain wave results was no different than torture.
Oh God.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It was no different than torture. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not even kidding you with that. Like change is, I talked to you guys about it, and we've talked about like the third to fourth week of like doing these habits and like doing these. You require an identity. You require it. Like, to survive, you need to have an identity. You understand that? And if all of a sudden I say, I'm going to rip your identity out of you, what do you think your body's going to do?
No.
It's going to fight you because it requires it. It requires it. So you're in this fight, you're in this battle. And I call it the exorcist. By week 3, 4, it's like literally you're like ripping out the soul of your identity, and you're like having breakdowns in 1 week and from the week before, and you're like struggling with this and struggling with this, and then all of a sudden you pass 3, 4 weeks, and all of a sudden you're like, it's like having a different fucking, pardon my French, having a different conversation with somebody, because now all the chaos is sort of subsiding. And then week 5 and 6 and 7, and all of a sudden now you're like cruising down the Autobahn in your Lamborghini. Week 8, you're like, woo-hoo, right? That's what it's like. And I'm not even kidding you with it, but when you understand anatomically what's going on, like literally the electroencephalogram shows it literally is the exact same brain waves as being tortured. Change is not easy. That's why people don't change. This is why the world requires to be changed on how we're educating people.
Yeah.
What are we doing in the schools? What are we doing with parents and teachers and this planet, right? Because ultimately, who we are to these people, and especially at that young age, and everything they're taking as fact, is literally going to mold. The Jesuit priest said 400 years ago, give me a boy till he's 7 years old and I'll show you the man. They knew that between 0 and 7, they could create a child into a superhuman. Crazy, because it's all part of the program. No different than us. We can go and get this, all the hardware for a computer, and we can program it into this crazy machine. We're very similar to that. You can program anybody, especially at that super young age. So change is not easy. It isn't easy. But here's the thing. In a time span, you can literally, in the midst of 66 days, rewire most of the debilitating and shitty things that have been operating your system for most of it. And the coolest thing is after you hit those 66 days, there'll be other things that you'll find, and you'll be able to add those to habits and override them. And now you start seeing success, and then it gets momentum, and then you're getting dopamine spikes, and you're just like, and then anything that comes in your way, you're like, it's not really, you may get, yes, there's going to be days where you're going to get upset. There's going to be things that frustrate you, but they are not going to affect your life like they did prior to that. You can get up and go. At the end of this program, everyone that I've ever talked to says, man, I am able to jump out of the issues that were in front of me that used to hold me back for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Yeah. And now I'm just able to hop out of it, right? Because now you recognize it all. And your old program doesn't ever fully go away, but it sure starts to get less quiet. It gets a lot more quiet. It's very quiet. And you're like, oh no, that ain't gonna happen. And you're able to move forward, right?
Yeah, love it. Okay, well, we are just loving all of this, and I don't want to let anyone else in on all the other goodies that we're going to be giving away at Ignite. I'm just kidding. Geoff is so great. Always like so free with everything that he offers, and it's just amazing. And like I said in the description of this video, this is honestly just a taste of what you guys are going to be doing, the exercises that are going to be getting you guys into really recognizing your own programming and the vision that you want to have. It is really going to be interactive and really transformational. And Ali and I are proof of that, and so many of other Geoff students. And we're just so excited to have him at our event. So Geoff, do you have any other final words, anything to leave with the viewers?
I think, like she was talking about, like if anybody who's out there that wants to make a change in their lives, and we talk about mistakes. The one piece of advice that I can give you that literally catapulted some of my personal development, but like my success with like money and online marketing, all that kind of stuff like that, anything to do with that. The only way to learn is from mistakes. You can either learn from yours or you can learn from somebody else. And I'm going to tell you, your best investment you could ever do is find people that care about you and find mentors that are going to help you along the mistakes that they've already made, so you don't make the exact same ones. Warren Buffett, the Steve Jobs, like when he was around, like all these really prominent and people that I know that are up on, they all still have mentors.
Yes.
If we're not learning, if we're not growing, we're dying. So you'll find successful people are always looking to up their game. They're always finding, like me, I just invested $18,000 in a mastermind group, right? I also just brought Mark Lack on for $8,000 for the next 6 months, and he's going through all my marketing and my branding and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Stuff that he spent years, you know what I mean? Like you have all these little things that you can do. You can really up your game. But here's the thing. You have to apply them all. Don't spend the needless money on things if you're not really focused and really figure out what it is you want in life, because otherwise you're driving around in a car with no destination, no GPS, no map, no nothing. And we all know what ends up happening. The car eventually breaks down. It doesn't last forever. Either do we. And the biggest waste of money and dreams and goals is in the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have all this information, once you have this stuff, it's really going to give you an opportunity to grow, to get what you want out of life, and be the person that you were born to make a difference in this world with.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Geoff. You're amazing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on. You guys are amazing. I love seeing what you guys are doing with your lives and what you're creating.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We are so, so grateful for you. And yeah, if you haven't got your tickets yet, we've still got the payment plan option until July 25th, which is super exciting. So ambitionbabes.com/ignite. And actually, I think that our schedule, Geoff is actually going to be VIP and general admission. So those of you who get VIP tickets get to see him twice, but talk about two different things. That's very exciting. So thanks again, Geoff.
Thank you, ladies. No problem. I always love hopping on these calls with you guys.
You betcha. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, guys.